Urgent question, David Simmonds.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. To ask the Minister to make a statement on plans for local government reorganisation.
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The English Devolution White Paper sets out how this government plans to deliver on our manifesto pledge to transfer power out of Westminster through devolution and to fix the foundations of local government. This government's long-term vision is for simpler structures, making it clearer for residents who they should look to on local issues, with more strategic decisions to unlock growth and to deliver better services for local communities. On the 16th of December 2024, I wrote to all councils in remaining two-tier areas and neighbouring small unitaries to start plans for a joint programme of devolution coupled with local government reorganisation. We acknowledge that for some areas, the timing of elections affects their planning for devolution, particularly alongside reorganisation. And so to help manage these demands, we will consider requests to postpone local elections, as has been the case in previous rounds. Where local elections are postponed, we will work with local areas to move elections to a new shadow unitary council as soon as possible. This is a very high bar, and rightly so. The deadline for such requests was Friday the 10th of January gone. Today, my department has published a list of all county and unitary councils who have made requests, including those who want to delay elections from 25 to 26. And for the avoidance of doubt, this is the list of requests. It is not the final list that will be approved. We will consider carefully these requests and only postpone elections where there is a clear commitment to delivering both reorganisation and devolution to the ambitious timetable set out. While not all areas listed will go forward to be part of the devolution priority programme, we are grateful for the local leadership shown in submitting these requests, and a decision will be made in due course as soon as possible. We welcome the large number of areas that have come forward, seeking to join the devolution priority programme, reflecting our own ambition for greater coverage across England. This Labour government was elected on a manifesto to push power out of Westminster and to relight the fires of our regions, and I'm delighted that local leaders across England sharing that ambition too.
David Simmonds.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Although not a manifesto commitment, the Government, as we've heard, published its agenda for reorganising council structures in England before Christmas. And we support our local government colleagues who are clearly required to respond to that call from government. Exactly. With local elections scheduled to take place in May this year and councils already incurring significant costs arranging polling stations, electoral canvassing, preparing to receive nominations and issue postal ballots, it's not surprising that many councils have acceded to the government's expectations of a delay in these polls, because why incur millions in costs to local council taxpayers for electing people to councils that are simply to be abolished shortly afterwards? But there remains significant uncertainty, Madam Deputy Speaker, about where and if those elections will be delayed. And with deadlines looming for key points in the organisation of those elections, that uncertainty risks some wasted costs for council taxpayers. So we on this side have a series of questions which we are looking to answer. We know many of those councils are Conservative run, and with Conservative councils charging on average £80 less per household than Labour ones, £21 less on average than Lib Dem ones, voters will want to understand the impact of this on their council tax and on their back pockets stemming from the government's reorganisation. So may I ask the Minister, firstly, what assessment he's made of the Boundary Commission capacity to undertake the necessary reviews to ensure equal distribution of electors across the new local authorities? Can he give an indication to the House of when he will make decisions so that local authorities will know whether they are preparing to organise elections and willing to incur those costs or not? We know that there are a number of other announcements that are in train, in particular the indication from the Deputy Prime Minister that places currently setting a low level of council tax will be punished through revisions to the funding formula. So when can we expect that local authorities will know what impact in the funding formula will have? With those questions, Madam Deputy Speaker, I look forward to informative answers from the Minister.
Minister.
Thank you. Can I thank him for those questions and genuinely for the spirit of, I would say, consensus around the broader issue. There may be differences in terms of pace, I would accept, but we don't shy away from our ambition to see devolution experienced by the whole of England. I think I do give a degree of credit to the previous government for building out devolution in the north of England and the Midlands, but surely we have to demonstrate that this is a project not reserved for the north of England and the Midlands, that is a project for the whole of England, and we're on with that. And our determination to make sure that we deal with these structural changes early in the Parliament is clear. But I would also say it is shared by local government. And it's important to say, on both devolution on the priority programme and on local government reorganisation, of course we set the timetable, we set the programme that will be supported and provide support, but it's for local areas to self-organise and to agree to be part of that programme. We're not mandating it, we're not forcing it. And so all of the requests that we've had since Friday have been from areas who share the ambition for that. And he will know that the sensible approach here is, if reorganisation is a genuine proposal, and it has to be, the bar has to be high for that test, that it is a nonsense to have elections to bodies that simply will not exist. Far better that we move at pace and we create these new unitary councils, then hold elections at the earliest opportunity. I'm not going to get into council tax, partly because it's outside the scope of his question, but also I would say slightly mischievous in the way that he frames it. But on the point of capacity in the process, it's maybe helpful if I lay out what the process will be. Local areas will make the request. We will issue statutory invitations at the end of the month, where our areas will need to self-organise. It's not for the Boundary Commission, though, or for the government to lay down what plans come forward. It's for local areas to submit proposals to us, and at that point government will make a decision on the right proposals based on what could potentially be a number of options that come forward from the local area. But again, that will be for local areas to self-organise and make those proposals to us.
Chair of the Select Committee, Florence Eshalomi.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Shadow Minister for bringing this important question, and he highlighted some key issues. And Madam Deputy Speaker, we know that our councils are sadly at breaking point, and our first major inquiry as the Select Committee is looking at local government finances, so we look forward to engaging with the Minister on this. It was reported that local authorities in England are facing £77.5 billion worth of debt by the end of last year, and much of this was held with central government or with borrowing. And sadly, because of this, we are seeing frontline services at breaking points, vital services, housing, social care. And residents cannot afford to be caught up in the accountability or pass-bucking if this reorganisation goes through. So can the Minister assure the House that residents will still have the same level of power and scrutiny over vital services during these reorganisations?
I mean, if I work backwards, and I thank the Chair of the Select Committee for those questions, what I hear often from residents and even from councillors, I should say, in two-tier areas is, more often than not, local residents have no idea which council to go to get the answer to the question that they need on local services. And what reorganisation provides, apart from efficiency savings in organisational costs that can be directed towards frontline services, which we believe are the priority for taxpayers of the country, not the simple the cost to exist in many cases. We also believe it's right from a democratic accountability point of view that residents have a clearer line of sight on what body to hold to account for local decisions. On the point about local government finance, which we absolutely understand and accept, we have worked hard and I would say have been relatively successful on rebalancing the funding crisis in local government, and we've done that by providing £5 billion of new money into the system that takes the total allocation to £69 billion. Now, we can't undo 14 years of damage, and it has been damaging in 14 years, in 6 months' time, but we are bridging now to that multi-year settlement where we really begin to repair the foundations, and I think we've made progress on that.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Vikki Slade.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. There is no doubt that local government needs significant reform, and Lib Dems are passionate about putting power into the hands of local communities. But we are concerned that rather than true devolution, these plans will end up being a top-down diktat from Whitehall. MPs and district councillors from areas including Devon, Surrey and the Midlands have told me that submissions appear to have been made without their district councils being involved or consulted, and without the opportunity to undertake consultation with residents and businesses. So what steps is the government taking to ensure that they engage meaningfully with every level of council? And councils like BCP, which I used to lead, face a Hobson's choice. Tonight, they will be voting on whether to join proposals to their east or their west, neither of which reflect their urban needs or their distinct character. Or do they sit it out and hope for the best? So what plans does the government have to ensure residents will have the democratic ability to decide on the right devolution plan for them? And can you confirm that, given that these plans will take more than a year, that all elections due in May 2025 will go ahead?
I should say, I do not want this conversation about reorganisation and trying to redirect that money in operational costs to the front line so taxpayers get better value for money and see the benefit of local public services, to be somehow disregarding the good work of district councils. You know, I pay tribute to council officials, to frontline workers and to councillors, whether they're in unitaries, counties or districts, for the work that they have done. This is just a view that the best way to achieve efficiency is by having more streamlined local government structures that enables that money to go to the front line. In terms of whether district councils will have a voice in the process, now it's a matter of fact that we receive requests for reorganisation and the statutory invitations go out at the end of the month. But it would be usual for the government to be faced with a number of options for what those new boundaries might look like. The county might have a view about how many councils should form reorganisation. I suspect districts might have a very different view. And so it would be quite usual in the process for a number of different proposals to come forward for a counter, and it's for government to try and get the balance between identity, efficiency and having an anchor to the area that makes some sense in that. And genuinely, we want that to be a collaborative process where we do get the right outcome for local people.
Paul Foster.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As the Minister is aware, I was a District Council leader in Lancashire up until the 5th of July, when I got the Avanti train down to Westminster. The challenge we face is that the two-tier system, and I have said this for many years, doesn't work. It does confuse our residents. When you look at the Local Government Association map of England and the different structures of local government, it's a mishmash and it doesn't work and it does confuse people. Now, my concern, Minister, is that Lancashire and South Ribble, my constituency, have put forward detailed proposals for local government reorganisation to you, but the County Council, the Conservative-run County Council, hasn't. My concern here is that we have some elections that are going to get cancelled and some that aren't. Can you consider, please, enforcing on the priority programme all elections are cancelled, where he's going to move forward with organisation quickly? Thank you.
Minister.
I think the Chamber was half expecting when he said he got the train down on the 15th of July on Avanti. He's only just arrived. But I think he's been here for some time before that. Just on Lancashire, listen, you know, I know there are differences in Lancashire about the view on what a good outcome looks like. There are certainly views about what a good process looks like. But I think there is a shared view in Lancashire that actually devolution, the time has come in Lancashire. When they look to Greater Manchester, when they look to the Liverpool City region, when they see that Cumbria and Cheshire are organising to be part of the next stage, they of course want to be part of that. I would say the difference with Lancashire that is unique actually is that we were already in discussions with Lancashire about their own timetable and their process. And so in the agreement for the Level 2 agreement that's in place at the moment, which of course comes with investment funding and other powers, they have agreed that by autumn this year they will submit proposals to government that reconciles their organisational status and also has a plan in place to move forward with a mayoral combined authority in that area. Lancashire took the view that given that timetable was already in place, that they didn't need to make a request for the election to be cancelled. But to be clear, we absolutely see Lancashire being part of a priority piece of work going forward, and they are critical. And to see the prize for the north of England in having Cheshire, Lancashire and Cumbria completed, where the whole of the north of England has mayoral devolution, I think that will be game-changing.
Lewis Cupping.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I draw members' attention to my register of interest. In the devolution white paper, the government has set out 500,000 people as the appropriate size for these new councils. Can the government therefore rule out creating big super councils of over 1 million plus people, and will he meet with me to discuss devolution and local government reorganisation in Hertfordshire?
Minister.
So it's important that the government sets out the framework, and we were very directive in the white paper about our view on reorganisation and devolution. And the reason for that is because every conversation we had with the LGA, with the County Council Network, with the District Council Network and others, was always the worst outcome from the white paper is you talk to an issue but you don't go close to clarifying what you want as an outcome. But we did that. And actually, the response to the devolution priority programme has been reflective of that clear direction. We were upfront in saying that our view on an efficiency basis is that a new unitary authority should be around 500,000 population. But we were also clear that if that went hand in hand with devolution, that we did accept that a degree of flexibility would be needed to make sure we've got the balance of strategic oversight on the combined authority or strategic authority with the local identity and sense of belonging that people needed. But I'll be clear as well, and it doesn't matter whether it's a council going through reorganisation or whether it's an existing council in London, in the north of England as a Met or whatever, wherever you are, we expect that councils will organise to their neighbourhoods and communities, local public services and democratic engagement so people feel more power in the places where they live.
Daniel Francis.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My residents in Crayford in the London Borough of Bexley have their services provided by one council, yet in many cases residents in the same roads have their services provided by two councils, by Kent County Council and Dartford Borough Council, and that causes confusion for them, as the Minister has alluded to. So does the Minister agree with me that the changes introduced in the English devolution bill will make local government more effective and save money for those taxpayers?
Minister.
I mean, that's exactly what it's about. This is, I would say, the most ambitious reorganisation in England for at least 50 years, and maybe some time before that. We need to avoid, though, a sense that this is just kind of rearranging the local government debt chairs in terms of local government. It's not about that, actually. This project, the devolution white paper, is ambitious, and that ambition is about wresting power from this place, from Westminster and Parliament, into the hands of communities up and down the country. Because for far too long, power has been held in a very narrow way by a handful of people at the exclusions of millions of people in this country. And frankly, people have had enough of that. We have to find a different route.
Kit Malthouse.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I am fortunate in working with two local authorities, Basingstoke and Dean Borough Council and Test Valley Borough Council, who after many decades of careful stewardship are debt-free and have significant assets on their balance sheet which benefit their residents. What is the Minister going to do in this local government reorganisation to protect that legacy? And wouldn't it be profoundly unfair if those many, many years of careful stewardship were wiped out by them being amalgamated with more profligate neighbouring councils?
Well, it's not my intention to set one council against another in this. What I will say is that when areas begin to look at what new unitary boundaries would look like, they have to have a view on identity, they have to have a view on scale in terms of achieving that efficiency, and they have to have a view in the end about what construct will deliver good public services at the end of that outcome, whether it's adult social care, children's services, or those neighbourhood services that in many places have been eroded to the point where people wonder if they exist at all. We've got to rebuild from the ground up, and we do see this process, regardless of the debt levels or the financial status of a council, as part of that rebuilding. But let's be honest, there is nobody in this chamber or in government that can put a number on an outcome when we don't know what the outcome is going to be. If this is genuinely about local areas self-organising and presenting to government what their view of a good outcome is, we need to be open to that.
Alice Macdonald.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Local government organisation and full devolution is long overdue, and I believe it will bring many benefits to Norfolk and Norwich. Like my neighbour here in Norwich North, one council can collect the bins on one side and another the other side. Building on the questions from the bench opposite, can the Minister reassure us that cities like Norwich will have a really strong voice in this process to ensure that when it comes to key economic drivers, that their voices are heard?
I think that's a very important point, and I pay tribute to MPs, I should say, in Suffolk and in Norfolk for the work that they have done in terms of making the case for greater devolution and to wrestle power. I also pay tribute across party to the political leadership shown in the counties and district councils in the pursuit of devolution. Members will know that the original agreement for both Norfolk and Suffolk was not one that the government could agree to for a number of reasons that have been identified in the past. But the commitment to try and find a way through from the leaders in that area is appreciated, is valued, and we'll honour that in return as part of the next steps. When it comes to the role of those important economic anchors, we absolutely believe that in large parts of the country, and I see it in Exeter, I see it in Lincoln, I see it in Ipswich, and I see it in Norwich as well, you have very important city, economic anchors who previously haven't had a seat around the devolution table because they've been district councils, and we have to reconcile that as we go forward.
Dillon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Could the Minister update the House in terms of the capacity within his department to manage these reorganisations? So the Minister spoke about the deadline having passed and now received expressions of interest. So how many can his department manage at any one time? And also, what will be the determining factor of which ones get chosen to progress at this point in time?
Minister.
So the department stands ready to support local areas both on devolution and or local government reorganisation, and we'll make sure that there is a genuine partnership about meeting that capacitor. We're not just going to rely on local areas to try and find that. We'll work together on that. We'll have to present that at another date. That isn't here today. Until we know what the final programme is, we won't know what's required then to deliver it. What I will say is that there is not an arbitrary limit in terms of an upper limit, but we need to be realistic. That this is about having a high bar on devolution and reorganisation, and so we can only allow to go forward plans which have a credible plan for devolution. If there are plans that are less developed on devolution, even if they have a compelling case in other parts and we would want maybe to see them politically, I'm afraid that can't stand. They have got to be credible plans that ultimately lead to the ambition for devolution, and that will be the priority.
Jen Craft.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. At the time, historic bankruptcy that occurred in Thurrock that my constituents are still suffering from is symptomatic of a system of local government that is badly letting people down. Devolution and reorganisation represents a once-in-a-generation opportunity to capitalise on growing opportunities in Essex, deliver better value and improve services. Does the Minister agree with me that reorganisation is the right step at the right time to move on from this broken system and deliver for places like Thurrock more power and more opportunities to our communities?
Minister.
Yeah, so the member will know that there are very particular issues in Thurrock in terms of historic decisions in that local authority. We believe that there are efficiencies that can be garnered through reorganisation, and we believe that by redirecting those to neighbourhood services that people can see and feel, that people's satisfaction with local government and local public services will increase as a result of that. We also accept, though, that there are some systemic problems in the system that aren't addressed by reorganisation alone, and in the end, the multi-year settlement, the funding reforms that are taking place, have to be the foundation on which it's built.
Sir Geoffrey Clifton-Brown.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and the Minister for making his statement today. The people of Gloucestershire are expecting elections this May for their county council. If this is not to happen, could the Minister please tell us precisely when it will be decided as to what the date will be, for all the reasons so excellently set out by my rather honourable friend on the front bench?
Minister.
He makes a very fair point. Clarity on this is really important for areas to know either whether they will go ahead with elections or not, and to organise on that basis. We'll seek to give clarity by the end of the month, so a couple of weeks at the most.
Andy McNair.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'd like to associate myself with the excellent remarks from my friend and Lancashire colleague from South Ribble, and also thank the Minister for recognising the massive opportunity that reorganisation and devolution has for Lancashire. Lancashire has been held back for many, many years by our inability to come together and move forward. But given that we now have an ongoing devolution process, given that we have genuine proposals for reorganisation, which are supported by a majority of councillors across the county and by MPs, given the very significant cost of holding local elections, £3 million in the case of Lancashire, that could fill an awful lot of potholes. Yeah. It feels like Lancashire County Council's refusal to put forward a proposal to cancel the upcoming May elections looks much more like personal self-interest and short-term political imperatives being put in front of the needs of residents. So would the Minister agree with me that it's regrettable, to say the least, that this request has not come forward, and that really we should not be holding those elections and we should put the needs of residents first?
Minister.
I mean, I'll be careful, really. When we came into government 6 months ago, I was very clear to say that we needed to reset the relationship between central and local government, and I observed in opposition for many years governments parading councils round where there was disagreement in a very public way that I thought undermined the system as a whole. And what I would like, it might not always be possible, but what I would like to say is that where there are differences of views, that those probably should be aired in private and not in Parliament from a ministerial point of view. But I would say Even though there are differences in Lancashire about pace, potentially, and about what a good outcome might be, there is at least an agreement that devolution is the right thing for the county, and having the same powers that Greater Manchester and Liverpool City region has for Lancashire could be game-changing in terms of the economy, local jobs, and I mean by that local jobs, skilled, decent-class working jobs that give people pride of place is absolutely central to this government. So let's focus on where there's agreement and maybe put some of the disagreements to one side, but I take entirely his local perspective.
Dame Karen Bradley.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I'm very pleased to see that Staffordshire is not on the list and that we will have our county elections this May. But the Minister will know that my constituents do not want to be subsumed into Greater Stoke-on-Trent. So can he give them some reassurance, any at all, that they will have the choice and can say no if they do not want to be part of Greater Stoke-on-Trent?
Minister.
I quite like Stoke-on-Trent. I'm not sure what the local disputes are there. Maybe something not to go into. But what I will say is that the process, if I focus on process, would require consultation. And every area that's had a devolution agreement and eventually a mayoral election has had that consultation take place. I mean, there was some recent polling that said that the public were more likely to be supportive of the mayoral model of government if they had a mayor already in place because they could see the benefit of that. In the end, how we reconcile England will require compromise in some places, and I say that because England is unique, it is diverse, and from an identity point of view, there are lots that areas have in common, but there's some contradictions too. And it's our job through the course of building out that we work at a local level to try and find the right solutions, and that commitment is firm.
Members will see that we have a lot of members to try and get in today, and I need to finish this statement for 2:15. So if people could keep that in mind, both the Minister and members when answering and asking questions. Louise Jones.
Very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. The reason why I'm in this place and my absolute priority is to ensure that we deliver good public services to the people of North East Derbyshire by a well-run government with representatives who invested in the local community and are held to account. Can the Minister assure me that any discussions over reorganisation will include local boroughs and districts, and that any agreement that is reached will make sure that we reflect both of those priorities? Thank you.
Minister.
Yeah, so the request can come in for reorganisation, but the government's role really from the point at which we start the statutory invitation process becomes quasi-judicial, and so we need to make sure that we steer well clear of defining what outcome we want, because we are in effect neutral in that process. It's our job to receive proposals as they come forward, and it could well be that the county council and the district councils maybe put forward different proposals entirely, and it's our job to make sure that we consider both on an equal basis.
Will Forster.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As the Minister knows, the former administration at Woking Borough Council racked up debts of £2.1 billion. That money is never going to be fully repaid to the government, but surrounding local authorities are very anxious that as part of reorganisation they might have to share that debt. Will the Minister confirm how the government will handle debt in Woking and Surrey and elsewhere as part of the reorganisation? And will he agree to write off Woking's unsustainable debts to ensure reorganisation happens sensibly?
I think agreeing to write off £2 billion of debt on the dispatch box would be quite career limiting, I would say. What I can say is that the scale of the financial challenge in some areas is absolutely understood, and we are going to work to try and find a solution, but we are not at the point yet of announcing that.
Jonathan Brash.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In Hartlepool, 75% of every penny spent by the council is spent on social care. This is contributing to the burden on council taxpayers in Hartlepool that is far too high. Does the Minister agree that in the wider local government reorganisation, there needs to be consideration given to regional collaboration on social care, or indeed removing social care from local government altogether to ease the burden on council taxpayers?
Minister.
I mean, he'll be aware that Dame Louise Casey is conducting a more broader review on adult social care for the reasons that are well understood by the House. What I would say, though, in terms of local government and whether it should or shouldn't sit, is that where local government really excels is by being local, by being rooted in the community, and of course being the deliverer of a public service, but also being able to organise at a place level actually does provide a difference. And I would say we shouldn't underestimate the impact when done well. What we need to do is to make sure that social services are adequately funded for the work that they have to do to provide a good level of service for local people.
Richard Holden.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Deputy Speaker. Across Basildon and Billericay, my residents are very concerned about the idea of 2 years delay while there's massive reorganisation going on locally. I would really like some reassurance from the Minister that, particularly when it comes to the local plan, which has just been consulted on around 27,000 new houses across the area, that's not going to be suddenly rushed through by a local council which suddenly isn't going to exist in the future, and they're going to have to live with the consequences of that for years to come.
Minister.
Well, I mean, I'd say 27,000 new homes seems like good news to me, given the housing crisis that we've got, and we need to see more of that. What I would say, though, is that councils do need to operate as business as usual in making sure that they get the business done. The worst outcome is that councils going through reorganisation press pause on those important items of business that they have to get through. That would be a complete absence of leadership.
Alex Mayer.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. One of the effects of creating more strategic authorities appears to be the splitting of transport and highways powers in more areas. Can the Minister provide assurances that this will not slow down the delivery of capital projects that are very necessary to achieve economic growth?
Minister.
No, that's absolutely right. Our ambition is for acceleration, not for lagging behind. We'll make sure that no schemes are delayed as a result of reorganisation.
Bradley Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Minister has quite rightly pointed out that residents across the country expect councillors to take a more strategic approach to deliver better services. My residents across Bromsgrove and the villages share that ambition. However, the biggest elephant in the room is the role of adult social care in the local government sector. Can the Minister outline to the House what decisions and what conversations are taking place across government to address this so that new councils in the future, post-reform, get off to the very best footing to improve their areas?
Minister.
I feel like we have gone a long way to do that, although we accept, of course, that this is a bridging position to get us to the multi-year settlement. But £3.7 billion of new money for adult social care in the settlement, is that commitment laid out in pounds and pence in a way that local government have been asking for? We do accept, of course, that there's a long way to go and that councils need more support, but the government is absolutely committed to rebuilding the foundations of local government and putting it on an even keel.
Chris Vins.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his statement. Many of us across this House will have campaigned in district elections like I have in Harlow, and the number one thing that comes up on the doorstep in district elections is potholes, even though district councils don't have responsibilities for potholes. Would the Minister agree with me that this English devolution bill will actually simplify local government, but actually be more cost effective and bring back more value to the taxpayer?
Minister.
Well, the member makes a case very well for reorganisation, and I, of course, agree.
Martin Vickers.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As the Minister will know, in Lincolnshire, where there are two unitaries as well as the County Council, the three top-tier authorities have agreed on a package to go unitary. But there are complications in as much as in North East Lincolnshire, for example, there's a ward boundary review going on at the moment. Would the Minister consider cancelling that? It seems a complete waste of resources. And in the County Council area, which covers roughly 2/3 of the county, with the mayoral election that's taking place and the new combined authority being established this May, would you agree that it's important that the elections do go ahead to give the county a new mandate for what lies ahead?
Minister.
I'll say from our perspective, we can't allow the cancellation or postponement, I would say more than cancellation, of elections to be driven by any political views at all. We are clear that this is an administrative process, and it's about whether areas satisfy criteria that meets our devolution priority programme. Where areas are already in the devolution priority programme because they're having mayor elections taking place this year, I'd say, and it would be reasonable for me to say, we will need to see where the benefit is for elections being cancelled in those areas at all, given that devolution is taking place. But I'd say we've only just received the proposals. We're taking time to review them, and we'll make sure that's done in a fair way.
Sean Woodcock.
Very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I've referred to my register of interest as a serving district council for 13 years. I broadly welcome the thrust of this document. My question, however, and it's been referred to by the Minister already, is where areas are serviced by a number of different local authorities, such as mine. I have a county council, 2 district councils, any number of parish councils, including Labour-run Banbury Town Council for the first time ever. What you may find in those areas is a whole different variety of views as to what local government reorganisation should look like for that area, because there are different views on communities. Can they assure me that fast-tracking and the speed of this process, which I acknowledge the reasons for it, will not lead to rushed proposals that do not take into account what communities actually feel and look like?
Minister.
Well, I can absolutely assure him of that. And to say that, in 2019, 11 district council elections were cancelled to allow elections to take place in 2020. 7 district council elections were cancelled to allow them to take place in 21. 3 county councils and 3 district council elections were cancelled to allow reorganisation. I only say that because we can't allow any sense that this is something new and it's come out of nowhere. This is the day-to-day business of reorganisation, done in the right pace, in the right way, and through full public consultation.
Rupert Lowe.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Given the abject failure of devolution in both Scotland and Wales, and given the fact that the Americans fought a war of independence on the slogan, no taxation without representation, my constituents of Great Yarmouth would like the answer to 2 questions from the Minister. The first question is, why should they continue to pay their council tax beyond May, when they will not be represented by elected people? And the second question is, by what name do they call these unelected councillors after May?
Minister.
So we need to be clear that the members who will discharge the functions of the council and the executive have been elected. The idea that they're not elected, I'm afraid, is not accurate, and we need to be careful with the use of language on some of this, because I believe, and I'm sure the member believes, that most councillors are good public servants that come into local government for the right reasons to represent their community, and we shouldn't be targeting them unnecessarily. So to be clear, they were elected, but we might take the view, if they meet the criteria, that their period of office should be extended to allow election to a new shadow unitary authority. And on that basis, I hope that local people support it.
Steve Race.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I also want to give thanks to the Minister for the level of engagement he's given both myself and colleagues on this process since the English Devolution White Paper was published. And he will know that my level of enthusiasm for this remains very high for the ability of local communities to take more control of services in their area. Does the Minister agree with me that devolution and reorganisation offers cities like Exeter, Lincoln and elsewhere, which are key economic drivers of this country, the opportunity to grow and invest sustainably in partnership with strategic authorities? And could he shed a bit more light on the process when a county council and a district council potentially disagree on the way forward? Thank you.
Minister.
Well, I think if a county council and a district council disagree on the way forward, I'd say that's quite usual on more inter-issue, inter-subject. But I would say that from a government point of view, that we will receive proposals wherever it comes from a county or from a district or from a unitary that might change its boundaries on an equal basis. And it's important that that is clear, because we do want to make sure that in the end it's the right deal for local people, it's the right deal for taxpayers, and in the end it delivers good public services.
Alison Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I refer the House to my register of interest. How is the Minister going to avoid a fire sale of district and borough council assets once they are merged with county councils, who are crippled by the soaring costs of adult social care? Therefore, does the Minister agree with me that 2028 is too late?
Minister.
Well, we can only go as fast as the process allows. And the truth is, we can start the process early, and we've done that. We can give clarity early, and we are doing that. What we can't do is to shortcut a process that is a legal process that requires adequate consultation, that requires proposals to be developed, and requires a transfer of workforce and assets to new unitary council. That has to be done in the right way, and that does, by nature, take some time on that. But the point raised about local community assets is something we absolutely understand the importance of. That's why community asset protection and the community right to buy is so central to our agenda going forward.
Adam Jurgey.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Now, the Minister will recall, I hope, the concerns that I outlined the last time he was before the House. Efficiencies, as he's put it from that dispatch box, and improved service delivery are, of course, important, but so too are local identities and existing communities. And with that in mind, and I've asked him this before, how we will ensure that local identities will be protected, and will he meet me to discuss the impact that these proposals may have on the ancient and loyal borough of Newcastle under Lyme?
Minister.
I think that the point he makes about how do you balance identity, I think really is more about culture and approach as much as where boundaries for councils are drawn. Sometimes the identity of a council will match closely the identity of a place, but often it doesn't. And actually in many places, whether they're urban or rural or coastal, many communities are far more nuanced or more localised, and there can be some quite tense, I would say, local neighbourhood disputes as a result of that. Any reorganisation has to respect the historic, locally felt identity by every part of its new area, not just that which its headquarters might be based in, or even that its council might be named after. And holding that firm has got to be part of the approach.
James Wild.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. And the Government's timetable is wholly inadequate. And having scrapped the previous deal that Norfolk had negotiated without any consultation, how will the public be consulted about any changes going forward? And does he accept that a minimum population of 500,000 may not be appropriate in rural areas to avoid councils being very remote from the people they are serving?
Minister.
So we've headed that straight on in the white paper to accept that on an efficiency basis, population sizes of 500,000, 500,000 would be the number. But we're very clear in the same paragraph that where devolution goes hand in hand with reorganisation, that there needs to be some flexibility for the reasons that he has said, and that's our firm commitment.
Mike Martin.
Kent County Council has opted to go on the priority programme, and they've also opted to cancel elections this May. I guess turkeys don't vote for Christmas. The timetable going forward is a little confused. We're going to have mayorals in 27 and then the unitaries in 2028, and then it stands up in, later on. Could the Minister give me some more detail on that? Because if it is stretched out like that, we'll have Conservative Kent County councillors in power for 7 years, which, judging by my inbox, the people of Kent are absolutely appalled about. I'd be grateful for more details.
But from a government's point of view, acting in a legal sense, it's quasi-judicial, we have to take it on the value of the evidence and the proposals. It's not our job to get involved in politics as to whether the Liberal Democrats want to see the back of the Tories or the Tories want to avoid an election or vice versa. It's not our job to do that. It's our job to play it with a straight bat and to look at the proposals and the benefits of the proposals. Kent, of course, have applied, but we're going through the process now of screening those to make sure there are realistic proposals for devolution and LGR that hold up together. If they meet that criteria, we'll support it. If they don't, then we won't.
Mark Francois.
Thank you. Despite what senior county councillors are telling ministers, there's absolutely no clamour in Essex for devolution. In fact, quite the reverse. Neither do the public support the government's proposals to cancel the local elections. That's anti-democratic. But if they do press ahead with that, why don't we take the opportunity to have a county-wide referendum in Essex to see whether the public, the council taxpayers, really do support this? They can vote for massive change or to remain as they are. And if there is such a referendum, and I never thought these words would pass my lips, Madam Deputy Speaker, I will gladly vote Remain.
Minister.
Well, I think where he's getting to, if I can say, is that there will be a range of views on this. But from a government's perspective, it's our job to give direction, and we do believe that efficiencies can be drawn out. And when asked, I think local people would say that they would much rather that local neighbourhood services are maintained and grown rather than the overhead costs of organisations existing for the sake of existing. And it's for the consultation, it's for the proposal to draw out what the best outcome in that process is.
Caroline Burden.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I do welcome the theory of simplifying local government, but I'm very concerned about the pace the government is trying to move at. Devon has a very complicated landscape with Labour-run cities, a Conservative-run county and many Liberal Democrat districts. And we know that conflicting proposals have already been submitted to government by the districts and the county. So can the Minister explain how the government will adjudicate between these conflicting proposals and decide on which one comes out top?
Minister.
So we will see what comes forward from local areas. It may well be in some areas that there is a general consensus on the number of unitary authorities that might follow, but maybe variations on the boundary lines that come. There may well be, and maybe we expect, that in some areas there'll be entire disagreement on both the number of councils that should fall as a result of the proposals, but also the boundaries then that are drawn as a result of that. And at this stage, all we can say is, well, let's see what comes forward, and we'll try and make the right decision based on balancing identity, efficiency, and also the relationship to devolution going forward.
Neil O'Brien.
Madam Deputy Speaker, we already knew that without consulting local people, the government wanted to abolish our local district and borough councils in Leicestershire. We now know that the proposal will also involve a significant expansion of the boundaries of the city of Leicester, something demanded by the Mayor of Leicester, which would lead to significantly higher council tax for my residents. And within days, thousands of local people have signed the petition started by me and other local MPs against this, including my honourable friend for Rutland and Stamford, who cannot be here today. My local districts and boroughs are against this. So rather than imposing from London something that local people do not want, will the government at least agree to hold a local referendum in Leicestershire before pushing forward this unwanted proposal from London?
Minister.
There is a theme developing here of campaigning for elections to a body some wish would not exist in the future. Sounds familiar. And also for referendums being the answer to some of this. This is about local leadership and local leaders showing that leadership. And I would say, and there are differences, I understand completely, but I'm impressed, actually, by the leadership being shown by Labour, Conservative, Liberal Democrat and others, because they believe in their place and they want the best outcome for their place. And so I'll leave the local politics to local politics, but it's our job to make sure that we assess the proposal that come forward on a fair basis.
Monica Harding.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My constituents in East and Walton are well served by their district, the fiscal stewardship of their district council of Elmbridge, and they're rightly concerned that they will be forced to take on the debt of neighbouring councils like Woking. Equally, they're looking forward to the May elections and kicking Conservative Surrey out. Would the Minister not agree that leaders taking devolution forward should have a democratic mandate? And will he reassure my constituents that any unitary moves are paused until the question of debt is sorted out?
Minister.
We certainly accept that the question of debt, particularly in the case of Woking, where the debt is significant, standing over £2 billion, that has to be addressed through the process, but it's for the process to address that. We can't say up front how we're going to treat debt in different areas, because every area is different, and I don't think that any member would expect us to do that.
Joe Robertson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I draw attention to my register of interest. Residents of the Isle of Wight are expecting full elections this May. The No Overall Control Unitary Authority have asked the government to be part of a priority devolution deal with Hampshire, but not local authority reorganisation. That's not on the table. We're not being asked to do that because we're already a unitary. Does the Minister agree with me, therefore, there is no good reason to delay elections when the Isle of Wight Council's future and viability is not under discussion? That is an accepted point. Why should a democracy have to have elections when the Council will continue?
Minister.
Well, I think that's a fair point, and I'll take it away.
Sarah Dyke.
Deputy Speaker, Somerset, Dorset and Wiltshire are working together collaboratively on the Heart of Wessex devolution deal and hope to be on the devolution priority programme. But there is still some uncertainty over what decision Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole will make. So can the Minister confirm that the decision to include the Wessex proposal won't be held back depending on the BCP decision?
So we have to stick with the principles of the White Paper because that informs the legislation that will come later this year, and we're very clear in the criteria that we will not and cannot agree to any devolution proposals that create orphans that can't be resolved. And so we do expect that at a local level, local leaders will come together and do what's right in the very obvious geography of their place to find devolution as soon as possible.
Max Wilkinson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Cheltenham's had a historic voice since the time of Victoria on the throne, and we need to be reassured by the Minister that we'll retain that voice as part of any devolution and local government reorganisation. Otherwise, power will simply be taken away from my community and put either in Gloucester and perhaps as far away as Bristol with a new regional mayor. Could the Minister reassure me that localism will be part of his agenda too?
Minister.
He makes a fair point, and we are very clear in the White Paper that we want to see devolution rolled out in an ambitious pace, and we're doing that, and we're pleased with the responses that we've had. We want to see local government reorganisation because we do believe that there are efficiencies that can be drawn out to be reinvested back into frontline services that people see, feel and value. But we also accept, of course, that can't be at the cost of local people feeling connected and feeling power in the places where they live. And that's why the White Paper is absolutely clear that local empowerment and power to local community is central to the White Paper and our agenda going forward.
Yeah. Tom Gordon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My constituents in Harrogate and Knaresborough recently underwent local government reorganisation. As part of that, a structural change order granted 5 years to develop a new North Yorkshire Council-wide local plan. Work on local district plans halted to prioritise that new plan, and it's now been compromised by the introduction of new housing targets under the National Planning Policy Framework. Will councils undergoing new rounds of local re-government organisation, will they receive transitional arrangements, or will they fall into the same trap as Harrogate and Knaresborough and North Yorkshire, where speculative planning applications will see endless, concreting over the green belt and issues with actually having housing where we need housing rather than where we want it? And will you meet with me to discuss the legacy issues of that local government reorganisation and outline what lessons have been learnt from previous reorganisations?
Well, I think the member is conflating two separate issues. One is the process of reorganisation, and his area, Harrogate, has been through that. They've been through both the process and they've been through the postponement of elections to facilitate that process. What I would say on housing development, though, is if he wants to stop speculative development, if he wants to have control of what is built in local communities in Harrogate, the best way to achieve that is to have a plan in place where developers can be held to account.
Martin Wrigley.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. May I draw attention to my register of interests? In talking of localism, district councils did provide a useful amount of local accountability. Can I ask the Minister how he will ensure that local accountability continues when regional identity may be different to local accountability? May I also ask about the future of towns and parishes, which aren't mentioned in the devolution at all? Neither are the national park authorities. And how will those be empowered to have more local responsibility?
Minister.
So the White Paper was very directive on this. I can only assume he's not read it or he got bored and gave up halfway through. I'll leave him to answer that. But I can say that we believe that actually councillors over quite a long period of time have been relegated to the back benches if they're not on the cabinet. And we don't believe that's right going forward. We want local councillors to be the frontline councillors, the community conveners, really leading in their local communities and getting things done, and how we marshal the system, regardless of the size of council, regardless of where it is, whether it's a unitary in a Met area or reorganised in a Shire counter, we have to have localism at the heart of it.
Jim Shannon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I thank the Minister very much for his answers to the UQs. And also, I think the Minister is clearly outlining a policy and a strategy in the way forward, and we welcome that. The papers today are full of calls for debt cancellations for English councils, which does not provide as much relief to those councils who have sought to stretch monies and resources and to make ends meet, rather than vamping up debt with vanity projects. So how can the Minister ensure that reorganisation assists councils to prioritise people over policy?
I thought I was going to get a request to reorganise Newton ads then. I thought I've got enough on my plate. We're in England. The point he makes about the treatment of debt is absolutely important, and we do understand that there are pressures on that. I would say in most places the treatment of accrued debt is manageable within the geography, but we do accept that there are outliers to that. Wokin's been mentioned, Thurrock's been mentioned, where we do recognise that the debt that has been built up is significant and that we do need to take a view on that. We're just not at that stage yet until we see what proposal we develop further.
Steph Ackrowan.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I refer the House to my register of interests. There is a strong case for devolution in Norfolk. However, can the Minister confirm that holding elections in May does not prevent devolution for Norfolk? And would he agree that Norfolk's voters should be allowed to have their say on who is taking forward our devolution negotiations?
Minister.
So we maybe need to separate out that the devolution priority programme is one stream and the local government reorganisation programme is another stream. And what we're trying to do is to bring those alongside each other, recognising they are to a degree separate processes, so that at key points in the decision-making process, they'd come together at the right point, so there's transparency, clarity, and people know what timetable we're working to. So I accept to a point that they can be decoupled, but the two are linked. If we're going to reorganise and move towards mayoral combined authorities, we have to bring those in line to make sure it's a programme that makes sense in the round.
Alex Brewer.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. People in North East Hampshire have told me loud and clear
They want their democratic right to vote in May.
Yeah.
Given councillors up for re-election were elected in May 2021, does the Minister think these councillors still have a mandate to make decisions for their local communities?
Yeah.
Minister.
So if we decide to perform the elections based on a credible plan that moves devolution along and reorganisation along, then the councillors who have their term extended are legitimate and they have the powers and the rights to exercise as any other councillor. And I've said before, we need to be very careful that we don't undermine the democratic process by trying to portray councillors who believe in their communities, who by and large are doing a good job regardless of party politics, are somehow not there by right. They have been elected. It just so happens that in some places their term will be extended by a short period.
And the final question, Al Pinkerton.
Speaker, thank you very much. My residents in Surrey Heath face the prospect of cancelled elections, forced unitarisation and then forced amalgamation into a new Western Surrey Unitary Authority if the current leader of Surrey Council gets his way. And that Western Unitary Authority would be the inheritor of £5 billion of debt. I'm sure the Minister would agree with me that in seeking a new sense of identity for West Surrey, that a shared sense of bankruptcy was not what we were looking for, but that's the prospect that we are facing. What would the Minister say to my residents who played no part in accumulating this debt, but who may in the future play a part in paying it off?
Minister.
The point he made around debt, I think we have covered, and I know perhaps he's got scars of coalitions of the past, but I might suggest that now is the time to come together and put party interest to one side.
That concludes the urgent question, and we now come on to the statement. I'll give a few moments for the front benches to move along.